GM, General Motors, has a new look. For the fifth time in its 113-year history, GM has changed its logo, which is a big deal for any company, but an even bigger one for one of the biggest car companies in the world. Deborah Wahl is the Chief Marketing Officer at GM, joining us. Deborah, it's great to see you.
Great to see you again, too.
Wish we could have seen each other this year at CES in person, but this is almost the same. Let's talk about, it's not quite, obviously. But the rebrand is a big deal for GM, as I mentioned. But also this week, the company unveiled several electric vehicles. So what is the message that you are trying to send with the new branding efforts timed with these announcements?
Yeah, 3 years ago, we announced our vision for a future of zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion. And since that time, we've been working relentlessly to make that happen. We've worked on our technology and developing the Ultium battery platform. We've worked on transforming our organization and how we do business. And now we work at something that we call ventilator time, which is basically, it took us 30 days from the first meeting to manufacture ventilators for the United States and the world. And that has now become our new benchmark of how we tackle problems and the time it should take to solve something complex and challenging. So we've done all this change over the last 3 years. And I think the last year, 2020, really helped us all focus in on what exactly we were doing, our commitment to an all-electric future, and where we're going. So with that, when we really doubled down on that, we announced that we're committed to spending $27 billion through 2025 on an all-electric future that will bring 30 EVs to market by 2025. And so with all of this change internally, this was the right time to start communicating externally the transformation really that we're going through and what we're bringing to market and what we hope to do for the world.
What was one part of the design element that you felt was absolutely crucial to be able to deliver that message externally?
Oh, I think it's a combination of pieces, but for us, it was clearly a new campaign, which has three real key objectives. First, to excite everyone about the possibilities with EVs. I think the world doesn't really even understand yet what the potential is, and that's part of the role and responsibility that we have to make sure that they know that. The second was to really make sure everyone understands the competitive advantage we have with our Ultium battery platform, which allows agility and flexibility and scale so that we can bring EVs to everyone. And finally, just to also really highlight and prove how this platform and the EVs can be much more effective in terms of range, in terms of capability, in terms of speed, et cetera. So that's the things that we were trying to do. And we thought that a campaign such as Everybody In is the thing that really presents that in an optimistic way. It shows really that there is something for everyone and how we're going about building that and what that foundational technology is. And then finally, we decided to change the logo as well, because as we were transforming internally to a brand new company, we kept saying like everything that we communicate in the way we look and the way we express ourselves needs to really reflect this future that we're moving towards. And so that was the motivation for the change to the logo at this time too.
And I think what was notable really about all of these announcements, together is, as you mentioned, sort of the communication out to the public. I wonder, because GM has such a strong brand history, and we know how much people love their trucks and the cars that they've been accustomed to, there have been some questions in people's minds and consumers' mind about just not only the power of electric vehicles, especially as you get to the larger sizes, but also kind of the performance aspect as well. What is GM doing there to try to illustrate and to demonstrate really that there is not going to be a difference in any of those key performance indicators for the consumer when you do switch over to an all-electric future?
I hope that's an excellent question. A lot of people are asking that very thing. And I think that a couple things that we did. First, of course, we started 3 years ago with the Bolt. So our first real launch in the electric vehicle market was an affordable vehicle that Chevrolet launched called the Bolt. It's still in market. We have a brand new updated version coming in 2021 and a hatchback EUV, which is coming, which really expands that. But because we kept seeing this questioning about what the capability is, that's really why we're bringing Hummer to market early. That is really an expression of the full capability of what an EV can do. It has 1,000 pounds of torque. It can do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It can maneuver and has capability galore. And it really shows that it can really handle anything that our current gas vehicles and ICE vehicles can do. The second one that we're launching is actually the Lyric, because that also shows the refinement and puts a real focus on the new experiences that you get. I think what a lot of people, once they drive an EV, we see that there's incredible loyalty. Once you drive an EV, you're like, I don't think I'm ever going back. And we see that the numbers are very consistent that way. And so part of what we're doing now is to really show the range of capability all the way from the Bolt to the Hummer EV to the Lyric, all the variety of experiences. So it will really change the driving experience. And because they're based on the software platforms, it starts to change the ownership experience as well.
Yeah, the ownership experience is something that a lot of companies, big and small, new and legacy, have been toying with. Before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the enterprise offerings, right? I mean, the electric vision that GM has includes a new spin-off business called BrightDrop, really going after last mile delivery. FedEx, the first to sign on as a customer. Explain how this will also expand GM's current business trajectory.
Yeah, well, I think the first and most important thing about the whole EV world is scale. And as we know that the faster we get to scale with battery production, the faster we can bring down those costs and make everything even more accessible to everyone. So as we started going in the team, I give huge credit to Pam Fletcher and the team that's developing that, really looked at this as another one. There's a key need in that area, as we've all seen through the pandemic in the last year for delivery. How can we improve that? And that provides significant scale. As they talked about this morning, there is a lot of potential there, and that will enhance the ability to drive scale. I also think what's really interesting is it's beyond just a product. It is really an ecosystem of usage that makes it much easier all the way down to the customer to get your delivery and package. And I think that, again, shows the potential and the capabilities for what's happening. So if you go on gmexhibit0.com, there's actually a video that really brings to life. It talks about the story of the fastest turtle in the world, the fastest toy turtle in the world, and really brings to life why the BrightDrop ecosystem will be so important and what it can deliver overall.
I mentioned that there are lots of newcomers, of course, trying to get into this space, last mile delivery being a big one of them. I'm thinking of Canoe recently launching their sort of second edition of their own last mile delivery solution. You mentioned something about ownership models changing. They have a very innovative way of looking at this as well, that they will use sort of a subscription model. I wonder on, GM's side, given your scale and the infrastructure that's already sort of, been established over the past 100+ years, how difficult will it be for GM to catch up? If Canoe is out of the gate from the start, in that kind of model, with all of the, relationships you have around the world, with your dealerships, with the way that you have been manufacturing, are you concerned at all? Are there any ways that you can, or any insight you can share with us to give us a glimpse into how quickly you might be able to ramp all this stuff up?
Well, I think actually our background and our legacy skill set and capabilities give us an advantage in some key areas, because we already do have, for instance, with our dealer network, we already have a network set up that no matter where these vehicles are in delivery, they'll be able to be serviced or have any additional help that they need. So when we have things like that, I think that starts showing the competitive capabilities. Now, the key issue here is innovation and agility. And that's what our transformation internally has been all about over the last couple of years, and especially was accelerated in the past year.
Now, you've touched on some key words here: ecosystem, you talked about battery technology. These are words and these are terms typically reserved for those in Silicon Valley. And I'm thinking about the last 2 years, which, with what Tesla has done with its own story, changing investor opinion, analyst opinion about itself away from being a car company, but into a tech company. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that GM's market cap was worth, more than Tesla's, right? So what is it right now, maybe about also the logo change and all of this? Is GM trying to also revamp its image from a car company to become a tech company?
Well, I think all of us are tech companies as we move forward. That's the basis and foundation for where things are going. The important thing for a company like ours is to really help bring everyone along on the journey, help them understand what we're doing, where we've changed. So, for instance, at CES this year on our GM Exhibit Zero, we have over 46 pieces of content, many that showcase all the subject matter experts within our company, the people who are actually creating the technology, who are actually taking these things to market, designing them, showing how they're doing, really giving a sense of that so that you get a real sense of what the energy is in the company, how much enthusiasm and passion there is for all of this transformation, and the fact that we're absolutely relentless about being able to solve these problems that we think our customers need and want.
What do you need when it comes to battery technology innovation? I'm very passionate about helping people find jobs and finding new career paths. What does GM need from that perspective to become even more competitive in this technology space?
Oh, thank you for asking that question because it's really important. We've actually just announced that we're hiring over 3,000 engineers, IT specialists, designers, et cetera, to really come and work with us. And that's another key part of why this time is important, that people understand what we're actually doing so they can see that the opportunities are there and be interested in them. So if you do know anyone who's looking, please pass them our way. Again, we have 3,000 positions that we're looking to fill rapidly with great talent who shares our passion for our 000 future. We think it's really important. It's what drives us really to do what we do.
All right, we'll check that out. I want to move overseas to the biggest car market overseas, which is China, and really actually, in the world. For EV specifically, GM already has a pretty strong presence there. In 2020, still really delivered almost 3 million cars with that recovery coming in that fourth quarter. The Cadillac brand is doing really well. SUV still really hot. How is GM approaching the China market now going into 2021 and beyond?
That's a lot of questions. I wish I had my Chinese colleagues here who could really give you further in-depth answers. But, I think same thing. They're looking very closely at where the customer segments are. The Buick brand had a terrific year, ended up doing just amazing because they really focused on customer needs and where to go. And then I think as we're all talking about, the advent of the Ultium battery platform is going to be something that will be very important as a competitive advantage for the Chinese market as well.
How is the brand revamp going to translate overseas? It's global now, so is there a difference in the way that you want to communicate abroad?
Yeah, I'm always a believer that, you have a global perspective, but you definitely execute locally. So we're working with our teams in China and across the world to make sure that they can absorb this and get the right lens on the new brand campaign and logo, et cetera, for their markets. It's really important that that's done right and well because the closer we are to the customer, the more successful we all are. So those are the next steps that we'll be rolling out after this week and CES finishes.
Yeah, virtual CES. It's so bizarre to have this almost, disjointed across the world. And, part of your announcements and part of the way that a lot of companies get great brand attention is with their concept cars. GM released their flying car concept. It's always sleek looking, right? These ideas. What did you want to deliver through those messages there? What message did you want to deliver rather through these concept vehicles?
Yeah, well, I think with those, what we do believe in a multimodal future of mobility, that there will be a lot of different needs. And I think one that answers everyone who's very says, oh my God, I'll never go into an EV. I think what we're demonstrating is we understand that people have different needs, different times. They want to drive in different ways and they need different solutions at all points. So that's why our designers who are always on the cutting edge are exploring, well, what does that mean in the future? How would you anticipate that? What would the value bring to you and what different use cases? So it's always important to really explore that, be involved in that conversation, be thinking about that, because we have to be way ahead of those trends.
Right. And it seems like, family units, close, pods are really sort of also at the core of the experience of these vehicles.
Well, you can imagine after this year that we've all had where we're basically interacting just with our families, that ideas be taken on even more importance and relevance.
All right. Well, let's talk about CES in general. I mean, you and I, again, were in person last year. I wonder if there have been any benefits to actually doing CES virtually, if you've learned anything this year.
Yeah, well, one, I think in terms of the keynotes, the virtual experience has allowed a much more in-depth keynote structure. I think the information that you can share, what you can show, how you get in-depth on the technology. For us, this was a real benefit, actually, of CES going virtual. And I'm so glad they did it because I think it's the transformation that we all need to be making. Our GM Exhibit Zero, with that, we were, instead of just being on site with a limited number of technologies and designs and things that we could discuss, like I said, we were able to actually add 46 pieces of content so that you could see a wide breadth and actually be exposed on a much more intimate level with the people who are actually creating these technologies and understand what their perspective is. So I think those are all great benefits. I think we're all missing the, hello and that, hey, what's the cool thing going on? Where should I go there? It's a little harder to find that online, but I think that we're going to master that. And to me, it's just another sign of the acceleration on how we have experiences together and how we share information.
Well, at the risk of, maybe asking you to give a couple predictions for this year that, as we know, last year has been has taught us a lesson to never really make big predictions. Do you have any that you think are safe enough to share that you feel pretty good about?
That's what we're all asking, because I called last year is going to be the best year ever, and I completely got that wrong. No, so I think the only prediction I have is that we should expect a lot more of change and need for agility and be able to react to whatever comes at us. I think that's the new normal that we're all expecting, and I don't have any idea what that's going to be, but I think it's going to be quite a few things that we're going to get through. And my other prediction is that all of these virtual experiences, I think we're really going to take it up to a new level. We just launched something called Chevy My Way. We have Cadillac Live. They're virtual showroom experiences. The uptake is much more than I'd ever anticipated. And I see more of that going, and it's a really productive way to share information and engage with each other. So more of that to come.